sports editor and columnist for the Tuscaloosa News. And Cecil, as we bring you in here, look, it's a big day on a number of fronts. It's been a big news cycle here in the last 24 hours. But Cecil, I'm not sure anything tops the fact that today is the 62nd birthday of Mike Score, a lead singer for A Flock of Seagulls. I don't know if anything tops that, Cecil.
That was the Australian invasion was it was like the 6-day war between Israel and Egypt. It came and it went so quickly that you hardly knew you'd been invaded.
What do we have?
Yeah, there for a while, you had Men at Work, Flock of Seagulls, and Divinyls, and the Australian Way.
NXS. Yeah. It was
Michael
it
Hutchins
was the Australian invasion, Cecil, before the punting invasion here of late from Australia, right?
Maybe that's what the guys in Flock of Seagulls did. They just went and became punters. That's why we don't have Australian bands coming over now. Midnight Oil was always one of my favorites.
Yeah. And not a bad run there. Not a bad run on the music front for the Aussies. Hey, Cecil, are you checking in from the security checkpoint at Bryant-Denny Stadium already, trying to get in for Saturday with the news of Donald Trump
I haven't
making a
started
visit?
working out logistics yet. I'm waiting on the university to let me know what streets are closed. There's already plenty of streets closed, so we'll see how that works. So Kip Connor's reporting that Kanye West is coming with President Trump.
Oh, wow.
So we'll just have to see how it goes. That doesn't happen. Contact Kip. Don't contact me.
I got you.
But it was going to be a crazy day anyway. So it'll be a crazier day.
The bigger question is Kim coming? That's what we got to find out next with Kanye.
We'll see.
So I guess TMZ might have like 3
could,
staffers.
Anybody can parachute in at this point.
Oh, man. It should be a sight for sure. Now, assuming it happens and President Donald Trump does make the game on Saturday, he won't be the first. And he had seen Alabama, Georgia previously, too. But I guess JFK was at that 63 Orange Bowl with Oklahoma and Alabama.
And then in 92, Candidate Clinton was in the press box in Little Rock. It popped over from the governor's mansion, and actually got to meet him. He actually came and, because he was just candidate. He wasn't president at that point. So he came up in the press box and schmoozed a little bit.
Bill Clinton, of course.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about sort of the ramp. Again, you didn't think the sort of build up and the buzz could get any larger. It seems to be doing just that on a daily basis now. We talked about this a little bit in relation with LSU last week and sort of that anxiety that seemingly exists within that program on an annual basis when it comes to Alabama. And really, I haven't heard or seen anything yet that makes me think this year is any different, Cecil, from that standpoint, from Ed Orgeron to the players. Is this pretty much status quo for LSU from a mindset perspective, it seems like, in this series of late?
Yeah, I think they do feel better about their offense. I think that's encouraged them somewhat. But now, and I do think that's true, but I don't think it's exclusive to LSU. Remember how agitated people were about Tommy Tuberville, who may also show up on Saturday. Who knows? But, when Auburn had a win streak against Alabama, or when Philip Fulmer in Tennessee had that long win streak, there was some anxiety about that, some concern about it until you saw it end. When it was over, then it was over. When Alabama was able to stop Tennessee in 2005, or when Nick Saban pounded Auburn in 2008 and ended that streak. then it's over. Then you can move on with your life. But there was anxiety on the part of Alabama fans when you get a streak that gets going. It's gonna. Your Florida Gators are going to have a little bit of that with Georgia here. But
yeah,
that's just natural. It's just natural. And the way some people react to that is to whistle past the graveyard, to bluster and brag and boast. And if it comes true, then they look great. And if it doesn't come true, and I'm talking about fans more so. I'm not talking about Ed so much or a coach. But if you talk big and your team wins, then you look like a genius. And if you talk big and your team loses, what's one more loss when you've lost 8 in a row?
It almost sounds like a fan base, a program that's trying to, in part at least, talk it into being, in some ways. And kind of understand that after a while, I guess. Sure you do.
Sure. And like I say, that's natural for all fan bases because here's at a certain level. I mean, there's a level where this is true, but at the level that Alabama's at, or LSU, or the prominent program in the SEC, there always has to be some external factor that causes you to lose. You never lost because the other team was better. That never happened. And so you talk yourself into karma just can't do this again. It can't be another bad break. It can't be another guy, in LSU's case, it can't be another guy suspended. It can't be another, Blake Sims drive or having to play a rematch or whatever the problem was. And so you think sooner or later, because it's random, because these are random universal occurrences, it's not just, the other team being better, because if you're a fan of an elite program, and not just in the SEC, but Ohio State or Texas or, Nebraska, they can't get their mind around that maybe their team just wasn't good enough, and so you convince yourself that these external things that are causing you to lose can't happen every year. It just can't happen every year, Travis. It just has to change. So there's some of that involved.
What about Tua Watch, Cecil? From the standpoint of maybe heightening that anxiety for LSU.
There's footage of the foot now, or the ankle, and
all right.
He was out at practice yesterday. So people said he looked fine and looked fine through the course of the practice. How that translates, having to elude blitzing linebackers or taking a hit from a 300-pound lineman, time will tell. But, it sounds likelier than not that he will play, but the official word remains game time decision. And so it would surprise me if the game time decision were that he didn't play, but we're not at Friday yet. We're not at Saturday yet. So I always have a setback, but I would say based on what it looked like they had him doing in a Monday practice, they anticipate that there's a good probability of his availability.
Cecil, what's your expectation tonight for that initial release of the college football playoff rankings as far as maybe a pecking order and the subsequent fallout?
My personal expectation is, it's like French fries. Be a lot of sizzle if you get them right out of the grease, but in a week, throw them out, drop a new batch. So I think the first one does at least stimulate a lot of talk. It's the doing it every week for the next 4, 5, 6 weeks. I've never been a big fan of the weekly release because they box themselves in. They create expectations with doing one this week. Say LSU's number one, that wouldn't surprise me at all. Well, if Alabama beats them, doesn't Alabama have to move up somewhere, you know, they'd certainly move ahead of LSU. Don't they have to move to number one if they beat LSU? So I don't know. There will be some people who will analyze it, and discuss it, and worry about it. And I will go back and look at my Sports Illustrated cover with Ole Miss and Mississippi State on the front and remember the year that they were in the top four.
2014. That was also the year my guy, Paul Johnson, took care of those Mississippi State Bulldogs down in the Orange Bowl. People forget about stuff like that, Cecil, when it comes to Paul Johnson. They forget about that. We don't.
Good old triple option football. And
why not bring it to Fayetteville at this point? Cecil, I mean, what do you got to lose? What are you going to do at Arkansas, you know, in terms of recruiting and everything else? That's going to make you a viable contender more than what Paul Johnson and the triple option could do in Fayetteville.
Because Navy was the Friday night game. Got to watch a good bit of it. Of course, UConn, but you know, it's a tough judge, and they're doing all kind of things off that formation too.
Yeah.
I mean, they were moving guys around. They weren't throwing much. I think they threw 3 or 4 times, but they were coming at you. UConn didn't know where Navy was coming from next. I think at Arkansas or at Vanderbilt, it makes sense from a recruiting standpoint. If you cannot recruit competitively enough, and it's hard, and this isn't casting in aspersion. If you can't recruit the guys that LSU, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Auburn, Texas A&M are getting, you know, and that's 4 games on your schedule, depending on how it shakes down, 4 or 5 games on your schedule that you've been out recruited, do something different. And it changes your recruiting dynamic. You're looking for a different type of quarterback. You're looking for a different type of offensive lineman. You don't have to find those 2, 6, 7 tackles, you know.
Yeah.
You don't have to look for those guys. You don't have to find – you'd love to have Calvin Johnson in that offense or Ozzie Newsome in that offense. You don't have to find 3 or 4 wide receivers like that. So you do have to find a fullback, which is tough in today's world. But you go find some kid that's playing guard at a 2A, and you make a fullback out of. So I think it would be great, but ADs are convinced that people won't come out and watch it. You know, not enough people will come out and watch it if you don't fling it around. And that you can't go 12-0, you know. Maybe you can't go 12-0, but those teams aren't going 12-0 anyway.
Speaking of SEC coaches, Dan Mullen and his Gators fall to the Georgia Bulldogs last Saturday down in Jacksonville. Where do you have Coach Dan Mullen in sort of your pecking order of SEC coaches of the last 10 or 15 years?
Well, you know, there's the Saban, I guess, if you're going back 15 years, the Saban Spurrier level.
Meyer, yeah.
Yeah, and Urban Meyer at Florida, obviously. I don't know. He did good things at Mississippi State. I don't know what Mark Richt's record at Mississippi State would have been, or Les Miles. You know, I think Les is doing some good things at Kansas. I'd probably have Les ahead of Dan Mullen. I think here's what I think, and I'm interested in your opinion, interested in Pop's opinion. I thought watching that game on Saturday, I thought there were. First of all, I did think Georgia was the better team. So this isn't about that, but I thought there were 2 or 3 situations where Dan just overthought, and it has to show that he's smarter than the next guy.
Yeah,
and smarter than the next coach. You know, where you just line up and you know, get a first down in that early possession. You know, where they lost possession. Just you know, do the simple things first.
Couldn't get a yard. Yeah.
Yeah. get your yard and keep that drive moving, and don't give them all the momentum there at midfield. Mm-hmm. So, sometimes I think he overthinks things, and other than that, we'll see if they keep recruiting well. I think he'll win at Florida. The question is can he hop up to that next level at Florida? So it has helped. Dan has come into Florida at the right time for one thing, in that Florida State is the dumpster fire that it is, and so I think Florida fans feel like that's sort of taken care of. Now they've got to get better than Georgia. That's you talk about LSU's Alabama obsession. That's what's going to be at Florida now. It's beating Georgia.
Yeah, and that ain't 2002 Miami down there in Coral Gables these days either, right, Cecil?
It's not. And so they were smart to schedule them, and so you get that win, even though they didn't look great. That was back at the first of the year. Sooner or later, the state of Florida is going to produce a quarterback that grew up being a Gator fan, and he's going to be a really good quarterback, and they're going to be tough to beat. Time will tell when that is.
Waiting on their next Tebow, I guess you could say.
Yeah, or even more of a passer than Tebow, although they would certainly take a Tebow.
Who knows? Maybe we'll see Joey Gatewood pull a reverse Cam. Cecil go from Auburn.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where he is, but it'd be possible. And that's not a knock on Trask, who I think has come in and done a good job, but he missed. I'll be interested, as everybody in the country will be interested, to see Tua and Burrow on Saturday. Fromm versus Trask. They did some good things, and they did some not so good things. I thought both of them.
I was going to ask you about
balls that you think are going to be there, and they're not there. Or they're not, or guys catching it off his hip or his ankle, and the controversial no catch call that they didn't overturn, the David Smith led crew, although they're not the replay crew, obviously, but that's not a controversy if it's a better ball. So we'll see. We'll see if we're just spoiled, and we'll see if Tua and Burrow can exceed that. Archie versus Scott Hunter in 1969 contest.
There you go. In terms of hype for this game on Saturday at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and all your years there covering Alabama football, where do you expect this one to rank, at least in terms of build-up to kickoff? We don't really know how the game will play out for sure, but just again, continuing as this thing is and ramping up, where do you ultimately expect this one to sort of fall among regular season games you've been around?
Yeah, I don't think it's been as much as 2011.
That was
for
crazy.
A variety of reasons that I've written about. 2011. I mean, a lot of people really perceived that as the national championship game because it was a two-team BCS structure then, not a four-team. And, people really didn't anticipate the rematch scenario coming around until Oklahoma State lost. And, I can't prove any more than Mike Gundy could prove his position on that. But my position on it is that either one of those teams would have crushed Oklahoma State like a fly. So it was a de facto national championship game. And this, whatever this is or isn't that. There's still a playoff and so forth. And that one just had so much hype, and it was in prime time, and the build-up just seemed a little bit bigger. But this one's pretty good, with the quarterbacks and so forth. It'd be in the top five, easily in the top five, but I don't think it's, from my perspective, gotten the hype and the anticipation that 2011, and those two teams in 2011 were just so stacked with talent. I mean, stacked.
All-time defenses, both of them.
Yeah, all-time defense. Absolutely, on both sides of the ball. On both sides of the sideline. And so I don't think it's quite equal to that. I'll be interested to see, who knows about next year when Georgia comes in. But this one's it's one of the top 3 or 4, but it's not number 1, I don't think.
Before we can get to Saturday and a little football game over there off University, we got hoops tonight. Nate Oates making his debut as the Alabama men's coach. I wouldn't say Alabama's diving into the deep end of the pool with Penn coming in here, Cecil, but it's not sort of tiptoeing into the shallow end either, is it?
No, Penn's beaten Power 5 teams before, beat Villanova last year. They know, they got plenty of confidence, know what they're doing, and have a big guy that's going to be trouble for Alabama. If Jalen Smith gets in foul trouble, Alabama's going to have some trouble down their guard, and that's going to be an issue all year. So I think people need to be aware how tough it is. Anthony Grant, Cornell came in there and popped them in the same situation. Alabama's 7.5-point favorite, playing at home, looks pretty good in their exhibition game. Has speed that Penn probably can't match with Kyra pushing the ball up. A lot of enthusiasm, but no, he didn't take. I'm not gonna. He didn't take the route of without naming a team and embarrassing somebody. This isn't somebody that's 315 in Kim Pom. This isn't one of those teams. So it'll be a good test. And people's expectations are so high, and that's great, and they should be. What I always caution people is, and Nate Oates talks about making the NCAA tournament, and people just need to remember that this isn't football. Sort of tie it in with your college football playoff standings release. You don't have to be in the top 4 to make the playoff. You go against Alabama's schedule, non-conference schedule, and conference schedule. You go 18-12 and 9-9 in the league, and you got a pretty good chance of being in the tournament. And people need to remember that.
Javon Quinterly, Cecil. We heard Nate Oates say upon the news that Quinterly's initial waiver request was denied, that he still felt confident that upon appeal, Quinterly would be ruled immediately eligible. In fact, Oates at the time said he fully intended at that point to still have Quinterly available to him for tonight. Hearing anything else on that situation, Cecil?
No, we'll probably get an update tonight from Coach Oates, although he'll be focused on the game. But if they've had – Alabama's requested a hearing by telephone, which allows Javon's attorney to present their case directly rather than just, paperwork back and forth. He gets a chance to state his case. Whether they've done that or not, I don't know. If they haven't, it's imminent. And then they make a decision pretty quickly on whether they're going to overturn one way or the other. So when that'll be, if it's today, if it's tomorrow, if it's, first of next week, don't know yet, but I expect Nate Oates will give an update tonight.
Well, Cecil, as always, we appreciate the time, my man. Always outstanding stuff from Cecil Hurt, sports editor and columnist, of course, of the Tuscaloosa News and Tidesports.com. Enjoy the game tonight, Cecil, and I'll see you probably heading up towards that press box around, 7:30 or 8 in the morning
about
Saturday.
6 a.m. I'll bring a biscuit for everybody.
Yeah,
we can wait
I'll
out
pick up some.
Wait out the security gate.
I'll pick up some fresh hot glazed for the guys and gals, maybe for up
Sounds
there in
good.
the press box.
Sounds
Thanks,
good.
Cecil. Take care.
Okay, Trav. See you then.